why you put me crying in the film?
Right, there's a line, never crossed it
Yeah, as a director, I was like, ooh, yes.
before. Who do you make this film for?
Oh, I have submission to do.
You are motivated by the deadline.
Yeah. Even though there's some things that we don't like to speak about, it's still part of us. Yeah.
Welcome to Qrious Culture, where we hear stories from documentaries and the people who make them. I'm OKJ, and our guest today is Wee Antong. She's currently a penultimate political science and public policy student at the Singapore Management University. But not too long ago, Antong was also a filmmaker who made an illuminating documentary about her grandmother. Now, in that process, she learned a lot more about her own mother as well as herself. And today we are going to do the same. But first, Antong, welcome to Qrious Culture.
Yes, thank you for having me. It's been a while with all the lights and the cameras, but yeah.
It's like a blast from the past, and
Yeah.
I'm so thankful that you're here with us today because we're going to hear a lot more stories from you for your 2021 documentary aptly titled Mother and Daughter. For those who have never watched this film before, how would you describe it?
So Mother and Daughter is basically a journey between, a grandma, mother, and me. So you get to hear our stories and you get to kind of see our dynamics as a family. And yeah, I hope people enjoy it as well.
I already have an immediate curious question. What was that decision process like to be like, I need to be in my own film? Because more often than not, a film or a documentary starts without one thinking that, I am going to be inside. It's usually a matter of circumstance. What was that process like for you?
Actually, it was my lecturer who was like, I think you should be in the film. Yeah.
So there's a version that exists where there's no Antong in Mother and Daughter?
Yeah, I think the original idea was... Wow, we strayed very far away from it. But the original idea was...
Tell us about it, yeah.
I guess you'll see us making this kueh, which is a love letter, a very very normal Chinese New Year treat. And it was actually just meant to be kind of a love letter to both of them. So I just wanted to feature both of them. But I think as we were talking and ideating, discussing how should we pitch this to people, they were like, actually I think you should be in the film as a third character because, I think it completes the journey.
I think of all the kueh, the love letter is the toughest. Initially, she was very reluctant to let us try.
You try this. Pull up. Okay. Oh my god, very hot. I try, very hot.
What do you think about this opportunity that you have seized?
I think it's very rare. Yeah. And I'm also glad that I did it. I guess also because at that point I was very interested in finding out more about my past and my heritage and just finding out what happened before actually I came into the picture. Yeah, so that was just a really interesting piece of story for me, and I thought, who else better than me to kind of approach it? Yeah.
And also they have done it together for so many years. I always felt that if I joined in, I will be more of a burden rather than a help.
It feels like you have, in some sense, relieved other people's curiosities, whereby sometimes, during family gatherings, I was like, I wonder what they are thinking, really thinking. But it's very hard to broach that topic or to bring up that conversation because you get the standard answers, it's like, don't need to try. Right.
Or it's like, too many people.
Yeah,
I don't
right.
have social energy. Yeah.
Yeah, not now. But with this documentary, you have the luxury to say that, I'm going to try what we have all been thinking. And for you, what was perhaps the most surprising thing as you sat down with your mother and then you sat down with your grandmother? Was there something that was surprising to you through that process? Or it's only through this documentary that I learned this here and now?
Wow. I start with my grandmother first. I didn't realize how very nonchalant she was. I don't know if I can spoil the film.
She's
here.
a vibe, and we're going to show some snippets.
我的丈夫是要给我这个压力咯，要生男的咯。我说我就顶他，你要就有咩？
Yeah, she's very chill about things, and even when people are like, let's say, not say criticizing her, yeah, she'll be like, okay, then you do lor. Like, it's kind of that vibe, which I never really expected from my grandma, because it's like, oh, she's grandma, I must, yeah, she's ama, so I need to like, you know, respect, but she's actually quite chill. And but then when it comes to making kueh, it's another different.
She has a
it's
different persona,
story.
huh?
Yeah.
可以清皮。
My ama is a very chapalang person. She can go from Hokkien to Chinese to English. I mean, when we were interviewing her, I spoke Mandarin because that's usually how we converse. But somehow she also added in English.
And I'm very surprised that like
Yeah.
she uses it all the time like that.
It's like very natural to her. Yeah.
就是说 wasted 啦，给我读书我不要读啦。
I was like, oh, okay. She's like being herself, which is good for me also. I think with my mom, we've always been more of like, I think recently become more friends rather than like mother daughter. Yeah, which I really like as well. And I noticed there's a lot of, we have very similar personalities.
I mean, she mentioned that in the film as well, right?
Yeah.
Because I wanted her to grow up to be confident, to be more assured and confident of herself, and not so much like me that sometimes I doubt myself that, yeah, I'm not as good.
I realize, I think when she talks about past, it's a very, at least language-wise, it's very, I mean, the English is simple, definitely. But it's very raw, I would say. I mean, there's Singlish, of course, which is like what we are used to. So I feel like that's when she's talking about her past and basically recounting what happened. But when she's talking about me or what's happening currently, she's very prim and proper, I would say. Yeah. But then when we are all together,
Right, like during the dining scene.
yeah, it's, I don't know. I think it's very Singaporean. Yeah, like obviously I'm speaking Mandarin with everyone, and then my ama will still speak English also again, and my mom will just code switch in between. Yeah, so it's very interesting.
我是希望你们快点长大，赚钱又可以嫁人了。
How much you want? 10%, 20%?
I want
Depends on you.
So I would assume that you live in what would be the traditional bilingual household where you would use Mandarin when needed, more often times with the grandparents, and then after that for your mom and with your father, do you use English or Mandarin?
I use English mostly. I've been trying to use more Mandarin to keep in touch with it. Yeah.
Was there ever a thought whereby, from a language perspective, that you wanted this to be bilingual or like all Mandarin or all English? Because it feels like you could have gone either way. Why have you decided then to use the dialogue the way that you have portrayed in this film?
I don't think it was a decision. I think it just felt natural, because at that point I wanted to keep things very I think as close to reality as possible, which is just a mix of languages. And my base of it all, my ama is a bilingual person. Yeah, which I think is a very strong part of who we are in the family, because we are always switching between those two languages.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What's interesting is I noticed that for your mother and your grandmother, when they speak together, they use dialect.
What galing gya la? Mo ha tang show ma.
为什么来嘅？
Ano be gya? What is yung gya la?
Between them, it's dialect. Between the granddaughter and grandmother, it's Mandarin. But between the mother and daughter, it's English.
Yeah.
Which is surprising because I would think that in such a household that perhaps that you and your mom might converse in Mandarin as well. Have you ever reflected on that, or is it's just second nature? 一出生就已经是这样了。
I think there was a point in my childhood where actually my Mandarin was much better than my English.
Is it?
Yeah. I don't know what happened, but I think my mom used to always correct me about my English grammar. Yeah, so she was like, oh, you need to get better at English so you can, get better jobs, you can get all these better opportunities. So I guess naturally we've all acclimated to English at this point, but now she's complaining that our Mandarin is bad, so we gotta switch at some point. Yeah.
Now, for your film, a lot of its charm, I would say, is based on how the interviews were conducted. As you rightly pointed out, the sound bites felt so raw, both in terms of your ama, who has this nonchalant, I've been through life already, it's like, yeah, just say what it is. And then your mother, where it feels like she's giving a lot of very personal vulnerabilities for first time on camera, which I admire because it is not something that I think people are so easily and readily able to give on screen for anything. And perhaps even sometimes for the daughter who is going to use this as part of a film that might be public. Take me through the process of telling them that, hey, I want to do a documentary about our own family, and kind of like winning their trust to buy into this process to say, yeah, we allow you to make this documentary about us.
I think it was a slow process. Like, it was a build-up eventually. So I think we only started really working on this like in December. Yeah, so like maybe the start of December I started just doing small things for her, like going to her place, just talking for a while, or just delivering maybe food, or like because my relatives like to give like old newspapers to give to her that she will sell to them.
So there is this build-up process before the cameras roll then. Okay.
So I think it's just about making her feel seen, making her feel that, there's people out there that will help her and will care for her. So even if she didn't necessarily open up like she did eventually, I think I think most importantly, like, I just want her to feel seen. And when I had to do like maybe a pre-interview with her, I think she was very chill about it, and like we just kept talking for like 2 hours. I mean, at first I did have to prompt it. I'm like, because usually, I guess that generation, they don't really like to open up to people, or maybe to the younger generation, they feel like, oh, maybe there's some things that they don't want to say.
Yes.
Yeah, which I can understand, but I think at that point I was a bit, it's because I was sitting there for the first hour, I was like, I'm not getting anything, but I just keep going.
So what do you do?
I think I just kept asking. I just kept going deeper and deeper. I'd be like, she gave me a one-word answer. I'd be like, okay, why? Why? So how? So what do you do?
Elaborate.
Yeah.
So how did all of this work?
I think because I was mostly driving the discussion, and then everyone else was like pretty silent. So I guess it felt like 2 of us were just in the room, and I think I also tried to approach it as a more director standpoint. So I tried to like make some jokes with her, and then I would say that's why I feel like vibes and the presence is important. So just being open-minded and also being an active listener as well. Yeah, I think actually really helps.
I think it's rather common for young people to self-censor or to have their own self-resistance in asking questions either to their parents or their elders for whatever reason. And it seems that the way that you've pushed the dialogue along is, well, let me approach this whereby I'm not here as just your granddaughter. I'm someone else, and that kind of like liberates me from asking the questions I've always wanted to ask.
Yeah. Because I find that interacting with, like, let's say seniors that maybe I'm not related to, I feel much more at ease. But somehow when it's your when it's your grandparents, it's like, oh no, like maybe there's some things that I cannot ask or cannot say. But I think actually most of the time they're quite willing to share. It just depends on maybe how we approach it.
Would it be your recommendation if, let's say, because I only just learned Mandarin, so now potentially if I speak to your ama, I think I can hold a conversation. But if not, it means that I will have to go through a translator. And I've always struggled with that, to be honest. Whereby, and that's part of the reason why I learned Mandarin, was that I had the opportunity to film another documentary subject who could only speak Mandarin, cannot understand a word of English. And so for me to do that documentary, I had to speak Mandarin and I had to learn it first. I tried a translator, it really doesn't work because it feels like I'm not earning that trust that way. I felt like I just needed to do that.
Yeah.
Is there any other way to create this kind of like bond and relationship beyond just learning the mother tongue? Or you feel like, actually, to be honest, no matter how you slice it, you sooner or later you just have to pick it up because this, hopefully you believe that the chance is worth it.
I feel like picking it up again, because I mean, if we are exposed to it since we are young, because of our education system, I think picking up again is not a bad idea as well. But I think also taking an interest in what they do. So I think for me it was via the love letters. So once I started asking more questions about, oh, how do you make this? What are the ingredients you need? Can I get them for you or something like that? I think taking an interest in their hobbies or like basically something that means like really important to them actually really helps a lot. Yeah.
There needs to be that genuine interest.
Yeah, yeah.
要跟他拿钱来买奶粉，他就说做什么？人家只是喝母奶，怎么你要为了这些钱来买奶粉啊什么啦给孩子吃？
Did that change your perception of ama?
Yeah. I think it changed quite a lot.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I think I wasn't that close with her before the documentary. And I know there's certain habits that she picked up that my mom is like, oh, why does she do this? Like maybe recycle materials, or like you look through the trash and see like, oh, what can I sell to the, let's say, Kalangguni. Yeah, and that always like kind of baffled me. Like, why would you want to look through the trash? And like, but now thinking about it, it's more of a survival instinct. It's like, okay, how can I get as much from whatever I have around me? Yeah.
Wow. So you almost like, you've seen these things, it's baffling to you because you don't understand the full context. But at that point in time, there wasn't either an opportunity or there was no conversations happening to kind of like bridge the divide.
Yeah.
Why do you feel like you never felt the need to ask questions of curiosity to your ama? Like, why do you do this? Why do you do that?
I think before this whole process started, I always knew that she would give me really boring answers like yes, yeah. And I think
就这样咯。
I didn't have the patience at that point to like, okay, so why? I think with this, being the director itself, you also have to kind of look at it through a very like objective lens. And I think that helped me be more curious about it. Because I think when your family is like, oh, it's automatic. Oh, this person always does this person always does that. It's just their habit. But habits pick up because of maybe something happened or certain circumstances. So basically, I learned to be more curious and not take it as automatic. As this person is like, this person just likes to do this, so they're just gonna do that. Maybe they don't necessarily like it. It's just, it's become part of like who they are at this point.
We always almost argue every night. Over money. So I would say she tried different means and methods.
So would you say that the documentary is an accurate reflection of the access that you always had with your mother and grandmother? Because for other people, this may be the first time that they understood or like peeked into their parents' and grandparents' life so in-depthly. Were those new information to you? The information that we see in Mother and Daughter?
I think most of it is not new. What I previously knew was more implied rather than explicitly said.
I see.
Yeah, so a lot of the things that I heard from them is for the first time, but I've always heard rumors, but I didn't know whether it was like true. So yeah, the documentary kind of confirmed. I was kind of more of a investigative person throughout the documentary. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That was, to me, something that was very, first off, I think very brave to do, because if it was like what you say, investigative, there is that chance that you might be opening a can of worms, right? Because you are doing a documentary where you are not the sole audience. So when you were thinking about this idea, I was quite curious as to who do you make this film for?
I never really thought about it. Because I think at that point it was more of like, oh, I have submission to do, so I should just do
You are
it.
motivated by the deadline.
Yeah. But I think a lot of people do ask me, because I'm still very like passionate about this film somehow. And then I've also been thinking about it. I think I kind of just made it for myself. Not to, that sounds a bit selfish, but I would say I think it's important for me. I think it serves as a reminder of like where I'm from, and also like, yeah, I should be appreciative of my elders. I mean, even if they are flawed and, you know, there's some things that maybe they are ashamed of or they're not so proud of, but I think it's important to kind of document that whole journey as a human being, because I think that's part of who we are. We are flawed, you know, and even though there's some things that we don't like to speak about, it's still part of us. Yeah.
For your film, there's so much personal history, not just of yourself, but then of your mother and grandmother. And once you let it go into the world, there will be discourse about it. Like, what was the thought process that you had when thinking about this? Did it imbue in you some sort of a responsibility? Because personal
It is
history
very
is
personal.
right.
Yeah. For me, I guess it was more of the sense of responsibility that, okay, yeah, I know all these things and these things have been recorded into my daily. So I need to do it justice, and I need to do it well and do it in my own way, at least, so that I can safely say that I'm proud of it, and, you know, hopefully my mom and my grandma think this is good too. yeah.
My father always say that 女儿是不中用，女儿以后嫁出去就是别人的。I just feel that he didn't give us attention, but of course, as a child, I wanted to be loved and be carried.
I think my mom, she's always been quite vocal about, you know, her relationship with my grandfather. So that I knew, but I didn't expect her to be so open about it on camera. I think it was because I was asking the questions.
Oh,
so
you
I
were the
needed
one.
to be there
Okay.
with her. Yeah. And I think until now she still scolds me like, why you put me crying in the film?
Right.
I'm sorry, but it's really very good. Like it really shows you as a person, and I mean, maybe she doesn't understand it, but to me it's a very beautiful thing lah.
Because especially for your mom, where there was that scene where you could see that the more she spoke, the deeper she allowed us to get into like her true feelings and thought. Clearly, she has reflected a lot about that,
Yes.
about her past. It's a unique opportunity when the director of the documentary is someone who is directly related to the person on camera.
Yeah.
And I think even before the tears might come, there would be this like sensation in the room that kind of like shifts. For you as her daughter, how did that make you feel?
I think it was, as a director, I was like, "Ooh, yes." But, as a daughter, I was like, "Wow, I never heard her speak about her feelings so directly." Because she has recounted the story, but
Not like that.
not like this ever, which I was very surprised. Because usually whenever she would tell the story, maybe she will tear up a bit. Maybe there's like a tremble in the voice. But then she'd be like, "Okay, next topic."
There's a line, never crossed it
Yeah. So when the cameras were rolling and she started, I was like, "Whoa, okay. I think I should let her have this moment, let her feel those feelings, and let's just go on a journey together." Yeah.
In this journey that the three of y'all went together, how do you think that made all three of y'all grow?
I would say I became a lot more grateful of the time that I'm born in and the freedom that I have with me to actually have this idea of making this documentary and, kind of putting it into history, right? Because I guess it's a part of history now. Yeah. So, and also being like, okay, like throughout your life, there will be some things that maybe it's more negative to think about, but it's something that you have to work through it by yourself. Because I saw my mom and I was like, yeah, maybe there are some things that made me feel the same way as well. But these are real feelings that we're dealing with and they're meant to be felt.
So if let's say there is someone else in a similar position, now they aren't planning to make a documentary, but they have that curiosity now about their loved ones, about their grandparents, but there is this divide, be it there wasn't it's not their habit to speak about this. And then sometimes people also face the mother tongue issue as well, particularly with our grandparents. How will you advise them to approach this now that you've gone through the documentary process?
I think it's just about being understanding of what their generation is like and also what we are used to, because it's two totally different generations, and it's understandable that like maybe there's some things that we're not satisfied with, like their answers or like maybe the way they think. But I think it comes with a lot of patience as well. You need to learn how to slowly open it up so you smooth them into the conversation. And I think definitely mother tongue is an issue that a lot of people face, like, okay, how do I talk to this person? But I think it's also about your presence, basically how you show up in that conversation as well. Yeah.
Okay.
Like it's the vibes. Yeah.
Right. Because even before you open your mouth, if you go in there with a certain kind of like aura,
Yeah.
it will shape that conversation.
Yeah. Because I think we have a lot of like judgment or maybe preconceived notions about certain someone when we enter a conversation. But if we learn how to like maybe let it go and say, okay, my grandma today is not my grandma, but she's like a person I want to know, maybe a friend that I want to talk to or get to know better. Then I think that's when that conversation shifts. Yeah.
So for the people that are going to be watching your film, what do you hope that they would get out of it?
I think for me, I didn't really think about the audience perspective because I think, like I mentioned previously, I just made it for myself. But I think for the audience, I would say, I think be curious. Be curious about, where you come from, who are the people that were involved in your life, and maybe what's their past life. I think that is very interesting to see, and it's the journey of identifying patterns that you will see, and I think it's very important to kind of revisit that time and time again. Yeah.
Excellent, because that helps me to wrap this up by sharing with the audience that you can't watch Mother and Daughter online, right? But there is a way for you all to watch it, because for Mother and Daughter, as well as every other documentary in this season of Qrious Culture, we have a special live public showcase happening in September 2024. That's right, if you want to find out more about it, you can head on over to QuriousCulture.com. Links in the description, as well as on all our socials. If you can book a slot, not only will you see all of these documentaries on the big screen, but you have the opportunity to meet people like Antong in person and ask her some questions. Are you excited for an experience like this?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so if you have curious questions, please come on down. Once again, QuriousCulture.com. And finally, if you've enjoyed today's conversation, please consider giving us a like and subscribe. It's going to help Qrious Culture go a long way. And please, if you have enjoyed this episode, share it with those that you care. We've appreciated your time, and I've appreciated your time, Antong.
Thank you.
Thank you.